Hello, my name is Amber Guillermo, and I'm doing my presentation on George Takei. So, who is he? George Takei is an American actor and activist. He has appeared in over 40 movies and is mostly known for playing Hikaru Sulu on Star Trek in 1965. He is also known for his activism for social justice and LGBTQ rights. According to the National Council for the Social Studies, George Takei has served as a spokesperson for the Human Rights Campaign Coming Out Project and was Cultural Affairs Chairman of the Japanese American Citizens League. He also serves as Chairman Emeritus and member of the Japanese American National Museum's Board of Trustees. Additionally, according to AsianSociety.org, in 2004 he was appointed to the Japan United States Friendship Commission under former President Bill Clinton. He was awarded the Order of the Rising Sun for his contributions. World War II effects on Japanese Americans. When Pearl Harbor happened, there were well over 100,000 Japanese people living in the United States, with over half of them natural U.S. citizens due to being born and raised here. After the attack, there was an extreme case of anti Japanese rhetoric. Laws were put in place and discrimination was at an all time high. With the public pressuring the government to take action, Roosevelt signed the order that caused Japanese people to lose their jobs and homes in one fell swoop. In the end, people were finally able to leave after a couple years. According to the National World War II Museum Organization, camp residents lost 400 million in property during incarceration. Congress gave out 38 million in reparation, and the Japanese community changed in many cultural ways. Background: George Takei was born in 1937 Los Angeles, California. His mother was born in the US and his father was born in Japan but left to go to the US as a teenager, which makes George a third generation American. In 1941, Pearl Harbor happened which caused public dissent and discrimination towards Japanese Americans. The United States set up internment camps to keep both Japanese immigrants and Japanese Americans segregated. When George Takei was 5 years old in 1942, his family was sent to one of these camps. They were first sent to a racetrack in Arcadia, California, forced to live in a horse stall until they were given their assigned camp in Camp Rower, Arkansas. After a year there, they were then moved to Camp Tule Lake in Northern California. They were released after World War II was over, but by then they had lost their house and their previously successful dry cleaning business. They didn't have any money to their name, and so they were forced to live in Skid Row, Los Angeles for 5 years. Unfortunately, George and his family was experiencing something that the majority of the 120,000 Japanese Americans who were incarcerated were going through. Having to get back on their feet after having everything taken from them, basically starting from the ground up with no help from the government who took it from them in the first place. George Takei's experience is what led him to have continuous interest in public policy. In 1960, he graduated from UCLA with a Bachelor of Arts in Theater. He appeared in many films in college and after college, mostly finding work in Hollywood, the most famous of which being his role as Hikaru in Star Trek. Since then, he has appeared in many more public appearances in media, wrote an autobiography, and published a graphic novel about his time in the internment camps called They Called Us Enemy. In 2008, George Takei shared his experience with Jay Kuo and Lorenzo Theon, and they came up with Allegiance, a musical about George Takei's life during World War II. It premiered in 2012 in the Old Globe Theater in San Diego. It opened on Broadway in 2015 at the Longacre Theater. There were mixed reviews when it came out, but it broke the box office records at the Old Globe Theater. After over 30 previews and over 100 shows, it closed in Broadway in 2016. Despite its short lifespan, the musical is something that George looks back on fondly, and he mentions that it is also something that he would like to visit again in the future. In 2019, George Takei published a graphic novel about his time in the camps. In an article written by Samantha Balaban, George shares a bit of his process in making the novel as accurate as possible. It did mention that there are some information that is lost to time. One example being that what the inside of the barracks at Camp Rower looked like due to it being taken down. He also shared a few quotes from the book. A couple I found most heartbreaking was the way his parents had different ways of trying to protect and shield him from the harsh reality that they were living in. Balaban writes, one illustration in the book shows the work that Takei's mother put in to make that barrack, no more than tar paper and boards stuck together, a home. She gathered rags and tore them up into strips and braided them into rugs so that we would be stepping on something warm. Takei remembers. She found army surplus fabrics and sewed curtains for the windows. She took plant branches that had fallen off the nearby trees and made decorative sculptures. She asked a friendly neighbor to build a table and chairs. In another article written by Joy Judas, George Takei shares that to keep his family calm, Takei's father told them the train ride was a long vacation to the countryside. After they were released and went back to Los Angeles, George Takei's parents worked until they were able to buy a dry cleaning business and grocery store. Growing up, George Takei's father really believed in democracy, and he encouraged George to become involved in the government. George was part of the student council in both middle and high school, and in 1980, when there was an investigation on the internment camps, George testified. Because of him and many others who had testified and ran for office in order to get proper justice, they eventually succeeded in their goal. In the 1980s, reparations were given to Japanese Americans by the government. Unfortunately, the person who pushed and encouraged George towards this very goal, his father, had passed away in 1979. In 2005, George Takei came out in the Frontiers magazine. He had revealed that he and his current husband had been together for a little under 20 years at the time, having first met in an LGBT club. In 2008, a day after gay marriage was legalized, they announced their marriage plans and were one of the first to apply for same-sex marriage in West Hollywood. In 2006, George Takei did a nationwide equality trek, speaking about his experiences and life as a gay Japanese man. In 2014, he raised over $100,000 to start a web series talking about getting kicked out of Boy Scouts due to their anti-gay policies. In conclusion, George Takei had spent nearly his whole life spreading information and his personal experiences in many educational forms. He is inspiring because of how much effort he puts into making the world a better place through social reforms, often speaking out at group settings and organizations or through donating.